This is the WP Elevation Podcast, helping WordPress consultants elevate.
G'day, Troy Dean from WP Elevation, and I'm very pleased to have with me all the way from San Francisco, Trent Lapinski from CyberChimps. Hey Trent, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Very good. Thanks for joining us on the WP Elevation Podcast. Just before we get into this, a quick competition announcement. Trent has very kindly donated a pro version of the responsive theme from CyberChimps, valued at $40. So stick around for details on how you can enter that competition a little bit later on. Hey Trent, before we start talking about all things WordPress-ish and web-ish, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I really wanted to be like a writer or like some kind of historian. Also, possibly an explorer or adventurer.
Oh, nice.
I never really like settled on one particular idea. I know a lot of kids like wanted to be an astronaut or a cop or something specific, but I was always kind of like, I want to do a lot of things.
Nice. An astronaut is very common, I must say. We've had that a lot.
That sounds really cold to me. I like oxygen and, gravity.
And did any of the exploring stuff happen? Like, do you go out and do kind of orienteering on the weekends in your spare time, or?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty world traveled, not as much as I'd like to be, but yeah, I do a bit of exploring. Just last week, I was in Lake Tahoe and went on a mile-long hike where you had to the difficulty level for the trail we were on said that it was easy, but like we were kind of having to like scale the side of the cliff and and there was a lot of ice, so it was really slippery. So
wow.
Kind of fell at one point, but
wow.
At the top, I got to see a frozen waterfall and have a snowball fight with my girlfriend, so that was cool.
Worth the investment. So when did you discover the web?
I discovered the internet when it was about third grade. I was at my dad's business partner's house, and his stepson was showing me eWorld, Apple's internet service. And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. Didn't really quite grasp exactly what it was yet. I'd been using computers since I was like 4 or 5, but it was like, oh, okay, email, I get the concept, yeah. But it was really like 4th grade when I was like 9 or 10. I got my first AOL account, and that's when I was like, oh, okay, I understand.
Wow.
So I had my first internet girlfriend after like 3 weeks. Was toying around with like some software from like Cult of the Dead Cow and like some of the like hacking groups and stuff. Like I just like dove right in. So yeah, that was 4th grade for me.
Wow.
And I haven't really stopped yet.
Wow. Well, I mean, what else is a 10-year-old to do if you give them an AOL account? The first thing you're going to do is go and try and find an internet girlfriend. That's classic.
Yeah. She was from San Diego.
Awesome.
I think we talked for like 3 or 4 days and exchanged like maybe 10 emails, and that was basically the extent of the relationship. But yeah, that was the first internet experience, really.
The modern day pen pal. So, do you remember the first time you saw the WordPress dashboard?
Probably. I'm still trying to remember the first time I saw the WordPress dashboard. It was either in like late 05 or like early 06, and I have to admit that I didn't use it. I actually then went back to using other content management systems. And it wasn't until like late 2007, early 2008 that I really started to get into WordPress again. A lot of the projects I was working on at the time, I didn't really have the need for like a full-fledged content management system. So yeah, some of the stuff I was dealing with, it just wasn't applicable yet. And yeah, it was really 08 when I just kind of really got really like WordPress heavy, and everything I did and every website and every project was just completely centered around WordPress at that point.
And so at that stage, was it client work that you were using WordPress for, or was it your own projects?
Initially, it was just my own little blogs and some of the stuff I'd been working on. I had run an Apple News and Rumor website out of high school for about 5 years, ended up selling it. That never even made it to WordPress. I was initially it was HTML hard coded.
Wow.
And then I was using PostNuke, which was a derivative of PHP Nuke. So I used that for several years. After that, I was using Drupal for a couple projects, and I was still messing around with like Nucleus and BBlog and like some of the other blogging software at the time. So it was mainly for personal projects, and then once I started getting into some client work, that's when I really shifted into WordPress because it was a lot easier. And there was it was a better interface. I could actually teach people how to use it. I didn't have to explain how to use code. It was really, and then two, that was when the plugin like side of things really started to take off. So there were a lot of different options available to really extend it without having to teach anybody how to use code. So all of a sudden I could build a website for somebody and show them how to use it rather than having to try and teach them how to program.
Yeah, it's a pretty common arc with most people I speak to, as they start using WordPress for their own projects and then realize that this is the tool they should be using for doing client work, just because of the relatively easy learning curve compared to the other products available.
Exactly. And then two, at that point is when it really became my favorite content management system, because all of a sudden I could focus on design work and focus on the stuff I was good at in content and SEO, rather than having to worry about necessarily programming the best, figuring out how to code and how to make the content management system do what I want. Now I could just download a plugin, install it, and go.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
yeah.
And at one stage you worked as a web developer and internet marketer for Playboy, right?
Yes, I did.
How was that?
I enjoyed it a lot. It was what it sounded like. I was doing internet marketing and web development for Playboy.
Wow.
So I landed, honestly, I kind of applied for that job like as a joke. Like I was like, oh, okay, this will be entertaining. Like I'll be happy if I just get to go on the interview.
Yeah.
So like 3 weeks later, I get the call back, and I had completely forgotten I even like applied. Like I didn't think it was within the realm of possibility. So when interviewed, really loved my, who eventually became my boss. We had a really good interview. They ended up hiring me. And then, I got to work on a bunch of projects there. We used WordPress to move over a lot of their like hard-coded sites for like all their landing pages and that kind of thing. Ran Jameson's MySpace profile for a little bit.
Wow.
That was interesting. So we had a YouTube account. We were doing like viral videos and like all this really cool stuff. So it was a lot of fun. And I got to apply a lot of like the stuff that I had learned at a previous startup I had worked at with two of the former founders of MySpace. So it was cool because I kind of got to like take what I had learned and take all those skills and apply them and do internet marketing and web development for Playboy. So
is it easier doing that stuff when the content you've got to work with is so viral, something as viral as scantily clad women?
Yeah, that made it a lot easier.
I'll bet.
I'm not gonna lie. The problem we had at Playboy was we had too much content, and we didn't know which content to use to market, because it was like we had this. Whereas with most companies and like other situations, it's like we're always in a pinch to like try and come up with creative content, and like content's hard to come by, and like. But at Playboy, it was the total opposite. It was like, okay, here's this mountain of content. Now figure out what's the best clip to use for a viral video. And it was like, and we had to edit them cleverly and word things, and we'd create like a couple different variations of each video and then kind of get around the office and see what everybody else thought and try to choose the funniest one or whatever it was. So it was a lot of fun.
That must have been a fascinating experience. Talking about today, for those of you that don't know, Trent Lapinski is founder and CEO of CyberChimps, who are essentially a theme company at this stage, if I'm not mistaken, yeah?
Correct, yeah.
So thinking about CyberChimps, how do you describe, when you meet people for the first time and they say, hey, Trent, what do you do? How do you describe what you do in one sentence? What's your elevator pitch, so to speak?
My pitch is I develop software that enables people to launch a website that's responsive so that it works on mobile devices without the need for an app. So a lot of times
Nice.
sometimes I'll leave WordPress out if I don't know if if I kind of get the feeling that the person probably doesn't know what WordPress is. I may not say that we're a WordPress theme company. If I get the feeling they're a little tech savvier, I'll throw in WordPress.
Right.
But
So if you're at a Hacker News meetup in San Francisco, you might say, we're a WordPress theme company. Whereas if you're at a family barbecue, you might use the other elevator pitch.
Exactly, correct.
Cool. So as CEO, what do you actually spend most of your time doing day to day?
Yeah, I mean, really at this point, I'm operating the company. I'm overseeing all of our projects. We did a really good job of kind of setting up a company and kind of giving everybody defined roles and managing things from that standpoint. So there's really two parts to CyberChimps right now, and it's services and support and our product line. So we've got our development team and our project managers, they're all working on product. And then we've got our customer service and support people, and they're working with our customers and supporting them and providing them with support services. So, so I'm managing both teams really. And then kind of also have to bring them together when necessary to, accomplish certain goals and make sure they're communicating effectively and and then two, I have to deal with the daily operation of the company, legal stuff, which seems to be a growing to-do list, making sure our taxes are being paid, everyone's getting paid on time, salaries, budgets. It's a lot of work that initially I had no idea what I was getting into. But because I'm more of a design marketer, I've got business development experience obviously, but I'm just coming more from the design and marketing side of things. So now I'm getting a lot more hands-on experience with project management and managing teams and really learning how to, find the strengths and weaknesses of my employees and kind of make sure they're in the best possible environment to succeed.
Wow. How's your social life, man?
It's going all right. Yeah, I mean, it's hard because, you do have to make some sacrifices and really try to stay focused. And it's definitely not the easiest thing to manage a startup. So. Yeah.
So you were saying that you did a really good job of setting up the company and giving everyone kind of really clearly defined roles. How did you know, first of all, how did you know to do that? And second of all, how did you know what the roles were that you needed?
Well, I knew that I couldn't do it alone. That was the first step, really. I mean, when CyberChimps started to take off, it was very clear to me that, I can't manage the kind of downloads, the kind of traffic, the support, the updates, everything that's required. So I went into it with the idea that I was going to build a company around, the product and kind of take it from there. So the first real need was support because all of our customers needed support. So it was like, okay, we needed to hire, somebody to help us with support. So that was our first major hire, was finding, a support person who could manage our customers and, make sure that we answer support issues in a timely and appropriate manner. So that was really our first need, and that was one of our first hires. So that need just kind of presented itself immediately. It was just clear we needed to build a support team.
Yep.
Then we figured out, development wise, there's security updates that we need to release regularly. We need to patch any known bugs. We need to, if we're using frameworks or, other development tools, and they roll out new versions, we need to update to the latest versions of the newest development tools. We need to refresh the designs to make them more modern. When we first went responsive, we had to redevelop everything to be responsive. So it was just eventually grew out our development team. So I mean, there really wasn't any like silver bullet, oh, we need to hire this person now. And that it was really more along the lines of, okay, here's a problem that we need to solve, and we don't have enough manpower right now to solve it. So we need to bring somebody else on to help us push things forward.
So all of the people that you've hired, everyone on the team has been there to solve a problem. Have you hired someone just because you think it would be really beneficial for the company, excuse me, really beneficial for the company to have someone in that seat? Like, have you thought, okay, if we had person X doing this job, that would really help us grow the company? Or have you just hired to handle existing capacity?
Up until about a couple months ago, it was really about capacity. And now we're finally at a point where we're starting to hire for growth. And we're starting to take a little more forward-looking approach. I mean, ultimately last year we grew a lot. We grew a lot more than we were expecting in ways we didn't really anticipate. So it was a good thing, but it was also a little bit of a conflicting thing, because it was like, oh, we were expecting growth in one area and it didn't really grow, but then in another area it totally took off. So yeah, we were in basically year 2 of CyberChimps, so that's the teething point for a lot of companies and kind of trying to figure out their identity. So we're hoping going into year 3 that we can really start to be forward looking now. And we just hired a marketing person, and we're going to be bringing on some salespeople soon. So we're hoping that now we're bringing on some hires that are really going to help us grow the company.
Right. So your product suite is themes and premium support. Is that right? Is that kind of the services thing?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So which area grew more than you anticipated?
Support. Yeah.
Wow.
Support really grew. And it was because our product sales went so well. Our products got better, so we sold more products, and then our support needs grew. So support really ended up being started taking up a lot more overhead than we initially anticipated. But it was a good problem to have. So yeah. Wow. Now we're kind of on top of it, and we're working on a new business model for how we're going to handle support this year. So
great. Do you get? I'm completely off script here, but I'm just fascinated in exploring this. If that's okay, do you have mentors or someone outside the business who's kind of coaching you through this process, or are you just all making it up as you go along?
Honestly, kind of making it up as I go along. It's really I would love like a mentor or an advisor. I haven't really found one yet. I've looked. Yeah, I mean, it's hard because with the WordPress industry, we're kind of we're this niche market. So it's like everybody within the WordPress community gets it, but outside the WordPress community, it's really kind of hard to communicate what's happening within our ecosystem. So I definitely look up to a lot of people within the community. And I love going to WordCamps and talking to other CEOs of other startups and other WordPress companies. So I would say like those experiences have been really valuable to me, and those have really taught me a lot. But I don't really have like daily or monthly or even weekly contact with like a mentor or anything. I would say my parents actually advise me the most. My dad was a music producer in the music industry for 20 years. My mom used to work for L'Oreal. So I've kind of been leaning on them lately, honestly, for advice and advisements, and two, I've been making a lot of new friends and up in San Francisco that have also been really valuable. But at the end of the day, it's really my core team and I that are kind of making things up as we go along.
Wow.
A lot of it's driven by data now, and we're finally starting to get like a lot of good feedback from our customers, and we're able to make and we learned some lessons last year too about some of our product launches and our marketing and that kind of thing. So, but ultimately, it's a lot of, there's a lot of guess and check and throwing some spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks.
Excellent. What's the one thing that keeps you awake at night regarding your business?
The future. I mean, we've had, gosh, it's just so crazy because, everything's just happened so quickly the last 2.5 years. And so there's moments where like I want to pause and kind of reflect on the past, and then it comes really overwhelming. 'Cause it's like, oh, a lot of things have happened in the last like 2.5 years. But, I think the main thing is just staying focused on the future, solving what we can today and what we can do tomorrow. So, yeah.
And what do you do when you're not working? How do you keep your head together?
I play guitar.
Oh,
Yeah, that's become a really good kind of outlet for me.
awesome.
I also I've been getting really into yoga, meditation. I've been kind of becoming like a health nut lately. I'm doing the whole like paleo diet
Uh-huh.
right now, so got off carbohydrates, which was not easy. Off caffeine. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Off caffeine. Wow.
Yeah, so I'm trying to like, yeah, because I put in, gosh, so many like 16-hour days,
Mm.
especially the first like year and a half. So it was like I'm trying to find some balance now,
Mm.
and kind of find like good counterbalances to the amount of just overall stress and everything I'm managing and dealing with, so that I'm a little more centered and grounded,
Mm.
so that I can really focus when I am working. But yeah, I've really been enjoying yoga, really been getting into like meditation, and just trying to kind of create a better, healthier lifestyle so that I can kind of lead not only myself, but the people I care about and my family and friends as well, and my employees and company too. So,
Yeah, that's great. That's really, you just hear it so many times of founders of young startups burning out because they don't do that. They just work flat out, foot is on the floor, 100 miles an hour until they just hit the wall. So it's really
I'm
good that.
guilty of that. I mean, I did that for almost 2 years straight.
Yeah.
So I'm just now kind of like, it's been the last like 6 to 8 months where I've been stepping back and going, okay, I need to manage the digital world and the real world
Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah. That's great. I notice you have an angel list profile. Are you actively seeking funding?
uh, it's questionable. I mean, I threw that up about, I think probably about a year ago. We were considering getting funding about a year ago, but I don't really want to give up equity.
Mm.
Is really what it comes down to. And then also, I haven't met that mentor or that advisor, or that I'm still waiting to meet that, to get that right relationship where it's like, okay, this is somebody I can trust that, can bring in, investment money that can help us grow the business. So I've kind of been operating, we've been bootstrapping the company, and I've been operating under the principle that, we're never going to get funding. So that way, if we do get it, it's just kind of an added bonus.
Mm.
And that way, if we don't get it, we're actually prepared and still able to pay our bills. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you think funding is common in the WordPress ecosystem?
Uh, right now, no. Unfortunately, there's just kind of this weird stigma about open source software still, especially in the investment community.
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, there was literally one group, I'm not going to name them, but, I spent 6 months trying to get them to hear me out on my pitch. Finally got to pitch them, and then afterwards they said, "Oh, we don't invest in open source companies." And I was just like, what? Like that, why would you make that rule, first and foremost? And secondly, like, why didn't you tell me that 6 months ago? So yeah, it was a little stunning for me, because it was like, oh, they don't really get it. pitched a couple other VCs. They're like, oh, well, you're just, you're within an ecosystem. And one of the big things I heard is we're more interested in finding the next WordPress rather than investing money in, within an ecosystem. But again, that just seems kind of crazy to me, because that's like saying, oh, I'm only interested in investing in the next app store. We're not going to invest in iOS apps, which makes no sense, because if there's a viable market and there's successful businesses operating within an ecosystem, that's usually a sign that if you put the right people together and the right investment money together, you can make something big happen, because this business model is already working. So from my standpoint, it's kind of crazy to me that people don't want to invest in open source software and don't want to invest in companies within an ecosystem, because it's proof that it works. So I definitely feel that what we're doing with CyberChimps and what other companies are doing within the WordPress ecosystem is much larger than the ecosystem itself. We're talking about the web and the open source nature of the internet. So to not invest in that seems crazy to me. But VCs, for some reason, are afraid of it, because it's a different way of doing things. There's no real intellectual property to invest in. And really, you're investing in people if you're going to be investing in the WordPress ecosystem. But I don't see that as a bad thing. But a lot of VCs would argue with me on that. So
it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years with WordPress, given its exponential growth, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. So it'll be interesting to see if some of those VCs start to get attracted to the ecosystem and start to see opportunities.
I think the smart ones will start taking notice soon. And I think interviews like the one we're doing right now, and I think, once people start to realize what's happening in the WordPress ecosystem starts to become more general knowledge, especially in the VC world, like it just, hopefully they're going to wake up, because there's a lot of great companies and there's a lot of great things happening with WordPress. And it's just crazy to me that no one is really getting investment funding, other than what Matt's done with Audrey Capital and, with Automatic. There really hasn't been anybody else who's really been investing in the ecosystem too much, other than the companies that are within it. So I really think, ultimately we're talking about investing in the open source nature of the internet and giving people the power and freedom to be able to launch their own websites, especially responsive websites that do work on any device. Because outside, developed countries, they're just getting access to the internet today. And their first device is an Android device, or that iPad you sold on eBay a couple of years ago. That's their first computer. So they're interested in launching a website just like everybody else, but they don't have a laptop. They don't have a desktop. So, there's really going to be this explosion of new internet users on mobile devices. And they're going to want a piece of the internet just like everybody else that's their own, to share their content, their photos, their videos, especially with everything that's happened with the NSA and, all these big corporations taking our data and doing whatever they want with it. There's inevitably going to be some pushback that, hey, I want to own my own content. I want to own my own blog. I want to put my photos up on my website. So yeah, I think we're going to start to see a trend where people are going to want to own their content again. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I think it's going to be really healthy for the WordPress community. And I think it'd be really dumb for venture capitalists to ignore that.
All right, you heard it here first on the WP Elevation podcast. Trent Lapinski is calling you a dumbass. Invest in WordPress startups. All right, let's talk about CyberChimps. Why did you start a premium theme company?
It's kind of a sad story, honestly. I was doing client work, and I was trying to launch my own freelance web development and internet marketing company, and I kept getting screwed out of my last payment. I don't know how else to put it. Like, I had 3 clients in a row that, we would take 50% up front, another 25% upon like some deliverables, and then, the last 25% upon completion. Like, contracts, did it all the right ways. Like, you go to a WordCamp and you hear how to like do freelance work. This is all the stuff they tell you. I did it. And I still had 3 clients in a row not pay me that last 25%.
Wow.
One of them tried to steal the code and launch the website anyways, which didn't quite work because it was on our server and we had control of their domain name. So that didn't work. And then the other 2 just abandoned their concepts and never launched a website. So it was just like, so I think, gosh, I added it up. I think in 2010, I had been, there was like, outstanding was about like $7,500 of money I didn't get paid for work I had completed.
Ouch.
So, I mean, the economy is still not doing that great, but, so I understood people were pinching money and that kind of thing, but ultimately, like, there wasn't really anything I was doing wrong. It was more along the lines of that's just kind of how things are now. And I needed to change something because obviously this wasn't working. So I looked at what I was doing, and I was building websites for people on WordPress. And I was using other companies' themes, and I was hacking them and modifying them and redesigning them and using other frameworks. And it was just a nightmare because, we were working with this one theme company, and we were sending them bug reports of stuff that was wrong with their framework, and they wouldn't, like, we would send them the code and be like, this is broken, we fixed it, and they wouldn't. We'd send them the code and they wouldn't fix it. It's like, so it was like, why are we doing this? So yeah, ultimately it just came down to, I'm going to create my own theme that I know, that's my own code base, and I'm going to use other open source libraries and stuff that makes sense to me and what I'm doing so that I can build themes faster and more effectively. And just, it kind of went out on a limb, built it. My former business partner and I we had enough cash for about I think we calculated that we could pay our rent and afford to eat for another 3 to 4 months. So we probably should have been going through our resumes and sending out resumes and applying for real jobs. But we didn't. We basically locked ourselves in our apartment for 2.5, 3 months, built our first WordPress theme, and then we did something crazy and we released it for free. So yeah, that was really kind of the point of inception for CyberChimps, and it took off. We released it for free. A bunch of users started contacting us. We released a pro version. We started selling the pro version. We haven't gone a day without a sale since.
Wow,
so,
that's awesome. How did you get your first 10 customers of the paid version?
Just upselling from the free version. Right. It was really that simple.
So,
yeah.
So traditional content marketing. Here's something awesome for free, and if you like that, well, imagine how good the paid one's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, and honestly, for our version, that was the pro version. It was just more customization options.
Right.
It wasn't. It was. We just made the product a little bit easier to use, and we just added a few more curated options that really gave people the tools that they wanted and needed to make their website better. So we gave the free version away with the concept that if you wanted to go into the code to modify it, you can. It's a completely open source. But if you don't know how to do that, then we're going to sell you the components and tools and options that make that really easy if you don't want to dive into code.
Wow.
So we realized that right there was the defining point between a free version and a pro version. So this way, anybody who does know code and who does want to hack the design and modify it to their needs, they can. They're free to do so, and they don't need to pay for our product. And those who want to, launch a site that's in a specific color set, or, they want some drag and drop features or expanded options, we realized people would be willing to pay for that. And, it was really that simple of just creating a product that was a little bit more advanced, but advanced in a way that made it easier to use so that there was some value in the pro version. And that's really been the driving factor in the distinction between our free themes and our pro themes. And then the other thing that we didn't even really realize at the time is support. Support also added value to our pro products, and really started to become a selling point for our themes, was getting that one-on-one with somebody who actually knew what they were talking about. So that's why we're working on our new support business model right now, and we're going to be rolling that out soon. So
it reminds me of something I heard once about the difference between selling a vitamin pill and a headache tablet is that you never race into a pharmacy to buy a vitamin pill, but you race into the pharmacy to buy a headache tablet, right? So the options panel, if you like, for a theme, to a web developer, that's like a vitamin tablet. It's a nice to have, but I don't need it.
Exactly.
But to an end user who doesn't know how to code, that is a headache tablet, because trying to get this thing to do what I need it to do without an options panel is a major headache. So the options panel just solves that problem, and therefore they're willing to pay for it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Things have definitely gotten interesting because now you've got the theme customizer. You've got, kind of now this new concept of how we're supposed to do theme options. I've still got my entire customer base who loves the theme options panel we built, because we optimize the UI to make it very easy to use. You turn things on and off. There's no checks, because we went through we spent a lot of time and a lot of money buying other frameworks. And we looked at what everyone else was doing, and it was just so frustrating because there would be a checkbox, for example, that sometimes you check the box to enable something, but sometimes you check the box to disable it. So from a user standpoint, it's a headache created. Yeah, so you're just creating a whole new headache there. So it was okay, we need to do an on-off switch because people understand on and off. So it was just little simple things like that we could really improve upon, especially in the user interface, that just made our products easier to use. And then now there's the theme customizer, which is awesome, but I still feel like it's incomplete, and I still feel like it's ignoring some possibilities. Drag and drop interfaces, for example, are present in the theme customizer. Editing a page on a per page basis and having different designs for different pages and different layouts, also not something really found in the theme customizer or most themes yet. So that was a big defining thing for our themes, was really having meta options that you could control on a per page basis, because most websites don't have the same layout on every page. Every page typically, a good website, has different layouts for different kinds of content and kinds of pages. So it was we really needed to build out a better way of doing that. So we did that with our themes, but there's still not really a good default WordPress way of doing that, which I would love if they would start building some of this stuff in. Dynamic sidebars, better ways of tapping into dynamic content and responsive design and that kind of thing. But to do so, they really have to start branching into becoming more of a CSS framework to do this stuff. But I kind of hope WordPress eventually evolves to having its own kind of framework. Because to me, marrying something like Twitter Bootstrap and WordPress, if there was a default way for us to do things and we had a CSS framework we could tap into that's part of WordPress, to me that would be awesome. Because that would give us a really nice, standardized way of actually doing things. Whereas right now, we're having to build our own solutions to these problems and build those features into our themes, which I'm more than happy to do. But it would be nice to have a standard way of doing this so that our post content and our post types and our sidebars are compatible with other themes, and are compatible with other plugins and anybody using WordPress. So it'll be interesting to see how theme options go and where it evolves over the next year or two.
So it's interesting. One of the questions I've got here is, with a theme company on every street corner these days, how do you? It's such a crowded marketplace. How do you stand out? How do you differentiate yourself? And how do you remain competitive? How do you not just become one of the many?
I mean, even I don't have a business partner because we disagreed on this front. I have, it is hard. But to me, competition is a sign that you're doing something right.
Yeah.
Not that you're doing something wrong. So a lot of people see competition and they're like, oh, I don't want to get involved. My mindset is, okay, if there's a lot of competition in this space, it means that this works. There's a lot of people interested in buying these kinds of products. There's a lot of interest. So what I really tried to do with CyberChimps, and I'm continuing to do, is I'm trying to make that simpler, trying to make it easier for the average user to use. So CyberChimps really focused on simplicity and ease of use more so than anything else. And I think that was really the real driving factor that really, I think, really kind of touched our customers, was that, they could have a cool website that looks good, that's responsive, that's not hard to use. So we really, really just kind of keep focusing on improving our user interface, improving our design process, and going through the process of what it takes to set up a theme. We literally built our theme options in order of what you would want to do first. So that way you can literally work through them left to right and just kind of build your website as it needs to be builded, in a process, and kind of providing a process and a road for your average customer to follow so that they can build the website they want easily. So I think that was kind of our main defining thing was easy use. So this year we're really going to focus on refreshing our designs, because there's been a lot of new design trends, parallax scrolling, for example, just advancements in responsive design, making it feel more like an app and less like a website that's been crunched. Taking that mobile first philosophy. So that's what we're really focusing on. We're going to be really focusing on heavily in 2014, is really focusing on not only doing everything we've been doing really well with user interface design and easy use, but also adding that really cool design factor on top of it. So, yeah.
So it also sounds to me that you kind of don't really pay too much attention or care too much what other theme companies are doing, that you've got a pretty clear vision about what your themes do and that you stay true to that.
Exactly. Because I think that's all you really can do, is you can only really focus your energy on what you're good at and what you know.
Yeah.
So trying to understand what everybody else is doing and trying to copy everybody else and trying to mimic your competitors and try to outdo them and all this other stuff, it just turns into this needless game of it just creates these negative feedback circles, and you don't even really know why you're doing half the stuff you're doing. And I don't care for that approach.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to focus on making products that are easier to use and that make launching your own website a little less frustrating. So I think really, again, that's the defining thing for CyberChimps, is making products that are easier to use. And I mean, we're even guilty of, there's a lot of things we're still learning to improve. We've got to redesign cyberchimps.com this year. We've learned so much over the last 2 years that we haven't even been able to put some of those principles in practice for our own website yet. So we're going to be doing a lot of that stuff over the next couple months so that we can really show our customers what our software is capable of, and that you can build a website just like ours using our software, and that's not that hard. So I think that'll be kind of the defining thing for a lot of our customers, because ultimately I think for WordPress as a whole, 2014 is really going to be about, WordPress is for everyone. It's for anybody who wants to launch a website, not just bloggers, not just businesses. It's really a content management system for everyone. So I really want to create products that reflect that.
Cool. Are you still having fun?
Yeah, I'm still having fun. It's a different kind of fun though.
Yeah, yeah.
It's changed because I have to admit I miss designing themes. That's what I'm really good at. So I'm trying to focus on organizing things a little bit better this year so that I can kind of get back to doing more design work because that's really who I am. So I'm trying to kind of figure out my operations a little bit more and get things optimized and get some people in place to help run some of the operation side of things so that I can get back into design work. Because that's really when I love sitting down and at the end of the day looking at something I created. There's nothing. There's just that feeling is amazing. I'm hoping to get a little bit more of that this year. Because last year I got that in a totally different way because it was like CyberChimps really took off and expanded past something I could even really control. So it was I had to let go of a lot of things last year and kind of figure out where we were going to take things. So I think so. Yeah, I'm still having fun, but it's definitely evolved into different kinds of fun, and it's different kinds of problem solving really too. So ultimately, I like kind of putting puzzle pieces together and solving problems. So the fact that the problems keep growing is a good thing.
It's a good thing, yeah. I remember I sat next to you at Pressnomics at one stage before we'd actually met, and I wasn't even sure who you were at that stage. I hadn't kind of pieced it together. And I remember at one point just seeing out of the corner of my eye, in between speakers, you were taking an opportunity to open Photoshop and work on some themes. I was like, cool, this is a man who loves designing themes.
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird because when I'm sitting in those conferences, the inner scientist in me still doesn't really understand it, but I swear there's like a collective consciousness when you're in a room like that.
Yeah.
And it just inspires me. And I'm just like, okay, I've got this idea. I've got to just get it out.
Yeah.
And there's just something about sitting in like at a conference at WordCamp or Pressnomics that just, I kind of tap into the energy of the room, and it's just, it's like all of a sudden things I've been thinking about for 3 months just like connect when you're sitting there at the moment. And I'm just like, all right, I got to get this in Photoshop. I got to mock this up. I got to write this idea down, whatever it is, and kind of explore it. So
it's pretty inspiring, Pressnomics, isn't it? I totally understand what you mean. Every night back in my room, I was madly on Evernote, just dumping as much stuff as I could out of my brain. It's a very inspiring conference indeed. If you haven't been, I strongly recommend anyone, if you haven't been, do your best to get along to Pressnomics. It's an awesome conference. Yeah,
that was dare I say probably the best WordPress conference I've been to.
Yeah.
It was nice to be able to talk about the full scope of what we deal with in the WordPress ecosystem without the limitations of other WordPress events.
Yeah, I totally agree. Joshua and Sally Strebel from Pagely, thank you very much for putting on Pressnomics, and hopefully they continue to do it. I'll continue flying halfway around the world to be there if they continue putting it on. All right, let's elevate. For those of you that don't know, WP Elevation is the world's first business accelerator program designed specifically for WordPress consultants. So what I intend to do now is ask Trent a series of quick questions about WordPress freelancing and get Trent to call back on his experiences when he was freelancing and even working for Playboy. And just give us some quick answers off the top of your head. Trent, how's that sound?
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. What's the number one thing any freelancer or consultant needs to know?
I would say just control your client's expectations. I think that's a big one, is really setting forth and defining for your client, this is how web development works. This is what we can and can't do. Because so many times when I was on a freelance project, we would build something exactly what the customer told us they wanted, and then they would say, no, we want this now instead. And it's like, you realize we just put down the foundation, we just built the house, we just put the floors down, we just painted the walls, it's finished. And now you're asking me to tear down the kitchen, add 3 new rooms, and add a pool. You want me to do this in a week? and you don't want to pay me extra.
Correct. It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Excellent. Managing expectations. What's the best thing you've ever done to find new customers?
Gosh, this is a hard one. I think the best thing we ever did to find new customers was to give some of our products away for free.
Yep.
The freemium business model works, and it's a good way of finding out what your product is and getting those first free users. Because if you can get somebody to use something for free, then you can figure out from there something of value to give for a pro version or, for add-on services or other support or whatever. So yeah, I'd say build something awesome and then see if you can get people to use it.
Beautiful. How do you stop competing on price?
Price. This is a hard one. We still debate price points and whatnot to this day, and we're constantly changing prices to see the different see what kind of impact it has. I think ultimately we've stopped competing on price, and that we're, like I said earlier, we're kind of trying to break out the difference between product and services and charge for both in their own respective right. So I think really that's probably where I would say, you can stop competing on price, is find value in something, figure out what it is, identify it, and sell it. And it's okay if it wasn't what you thought it was going to be.
That's really good. What I'm hearing there is productize. If you're a freelancer, you can actually productize some of your freelance services and sell them as separate product items.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So there's a lot of value in what you're creating for your clients. So if you can find a way to kick that back to the community as a plugin, as a theme, whatever it is, that's gonna go back to the first question and also help you get new customers as well.
Yeah, it's great positioning, isn't it? Making product. Any tips on writing better proposals?
I would say when it comes to proposals, I have a pretty crass, direct, honest approach. And I think most people appreciate that. So for example, we've been working with a company, again, not going to name names, but, they came to us, they wanted us to modify some of the products we had developed for them. I probably easily could have said, oh yeah, that's going to take us, 6 weeks and it'll cost you, X amount of dollars. But I said, you know what, we can probably solve this with a plugin, do it in a week, not charge you an arm and a leg. So ultimately, yeah, it's about honesty, I think, and just being straightforward and honest with who you're working with, because they'll appreciate you and respect you for it. So that'll give you business down the road that you couldn't even anticipate before. So I think when it comes to writing proposals and trying to increase conversions, I really fall back to just being honest and direct with whoever you're proposing to, and just being really true to who you are and who they are, and be honest with them, because they'll respect you for it, and it will lead to opportunities that you can't foresee in the future.
Good advice. Favorite tool? Do you have a favorite tool or system for CRM?
We're still trying to figure this one out ourselves. I just went to Dreamforce, so we're looking at implementing Salesforce right now. I think there's a lot of potential there to kind of marry Salesforce with WordPress. So that's what we're looking at right now. Is we're going to be implementing Salesforce. We're looking at ExactTarget, Marketo, and a couple of the other marketing software kind of add-ons that go with Salesforce. So
Cool.
I always try to, when I jump into a space like that, I always try to go for the best. Try to focus, finding the company who's that's about to really start doing something big. And I would say right now that's Salesforce.
Cool. What's the best way to keep a project and a client on track?
Project management software.
Nice.
We use Basecamp for everything.
Yep.
We use GitHub to manage all of our development. I wouldn't know what to do without either of without either of those. Basecamp and GitHub are just critical. There's nothing better, because ultimately, like, you need a good form of communication with your clients, that they can watch what's happening, with the development of things, that they can post and ask questions to, and that isn't as direct as a phone call or an email. Because, like, there's a lot of good ideas, and you have to say no to some of them.
Yep.
So with Basecamp, you can do that passively, without it having to be like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
It's more like, hey, that's a good idea. We're going to leave it in the corner, and maybe we can get to it down the road if it makes sense. But yeah, I would say project management software is critical. Whatever you end up choosing is, up to you. It fits your needs, but that's critical. And then obviously version control. And a lot of people in the WordPress community will probably disagree with me, but I can't stand any of the older, like, version control systems. To me, Git is so far superior to anything else. You can use sub-modules and organize code in ways that just wasn't even really possible before, and it's just a really great collaborative tool for coding.
Cool. Basecamp and GitHub, you heard it here first. Any ideas for getting referrals from existing clients?
We're going to be leveraging email marketing a little bit more for this ourselves. We are starting to run a few more contests. We're going to be developing our blog to really start targeting different content and to help with our SEO. So that's what we're doing to kind of open dialogue with our customer base so that they can continue to refer us to their friends and family. We offer coupon codes, other incentives. So we're really trying to offer a lot of incentives for our customers, along the social lines to keep them engaged and refer our products. So it's really about, I think there's a misconception about social media that it's a good way to gain new customers. It's not. Advertising is a good way to get new customers. Social is really about maintaining existing relationships more so than gaining new ones. So if you really focus on the relationships you have with your customers today, that's what will lead to referrals in the future.
Nice. What's the number one thing you can do to differentiate yourself?
I'm going to go back again to honesty. It's stepping back, looking at things from the big picture, seeing what you're good at, seeing what you're not good at, and finding the strengths and weaknesses of what you're doing with your freelance business or your company, and finding ways that you can, if you find somebody who's a really good designer and you find someone who's a really good programmer, it makes more sense to connect those two people than try to force them to be something they aren't. So learning to identify those things, and even within yourself, and learning your own strengths and weaknesses, and playing to your strong points, and either avoiding or finding solutions for your weaker points. I think that's what a lot of people could do better to differentiate themselves from other customers. And two, it goes back to controlling expectations. Tell your client, we're really good at doing X, Y, and Z. We're still working on getting better at these things. So let your client know that, so that they can make the right decision in hiring the right person for the project.
Yeah.
Because if you're forced to do something that you don't really know how to do, it's going to cause conflict that probably is unnecessary and was easily avoidable had you just explained that to the client beforehand. So.
It's one of those things too, isn't it? With like freelancers, I think find it hard to understand that not every client is right for you.
Yeah, no, they're not. Not every customer is right for you either.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, unfortunately, we'll have customers that like we just offer them a refund. We're like, we can't help you.
Yeah.
Like, your needs are beyond the scope of what we can offer you.
That's right.
So there's not anything bad in doing it. We hate doing it. It's not a fun thing to do, but sometimes it's necessary so that they know they can't start calling you at 4 a.m.
Yeah. It's a really nice way to fire a client or a customer is exactly what you just said. Then is that your needs, like we just cannot give you the love and attention that you need. We just can't do that. We haven't got the capacity to do that. We think you're better off finding someone else who can better service you.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it really, sometimes you have to say no to some really good ideas and some really good projects, so that you can stay focused on the stuff you're good at.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thank you for getting through the elevation round with us. Just before we wrap up, what's the future for CyberChimps, do you think, over the next 12 months?
I think over the next 12 months, with everything that we've got planned, I'm hoping we're going to just scale this thing. I'm really confident that we're going to be able to take what we've been doing for the last like 2.5, 3 years and kind of times it by at least like 3 or 4, maybe 10. I don't know.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're really trying to set things up right now so that we can just scale this and really start marketing and targeting people outside the WordPress ecosystem, and outside WordPress, and really just target everybody who's looking to build a website, and who's looking to own their own content and have their voice online. So yeah, I'm really optimistic about what we're going to be able to accomplish this year. There's some problems we need to solve along the way, but
of course.
But
that's all part of the fun, isn't it?
But yeah, I think it's going to be a good year, and I'm excited to see what else happens with with our competitors, to see what happens within the industry. I think the web right now is at a really interesting point, and actually we're at a really interesting point in human history. So I think there's going to be a really kind of cool thing that happens with the way mobile's taking off. With unfortunately some bad had to happen with privacy, and everything that happens is going on now with the NSA again and the government and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to lead to some innovation, and I think it's going to lead to awareness that we all need to be a little more privy to what we do with our information. And I really hope and encourage people to take it into their own hands, because it's really not that hard to purchase your own hosting space and launch your own website and put your own photos up on your own server, rather than handing them to Facebook or somebody else.
Exactly.
Who's doing who knows what with them. So, yeah.
Matt Mullenweg said during the State of the Word speech at WordCamp San Francisco that WordPress for him this year, or the future for WordPress, is about using WordPress like Lego blocks and building things. And he particularly spoke about using WordPress as an app platform for building web apps. Do you share that vision for the future of WordPress?
I definitely think it is a new category in the WordPress market. I would like some better distinction within WordPress itself to do this. I would not be opposed to there being an official WordPress app store that's curated and secure. I think it would be very beneficial to the community. I definitely see the potential for WordPress to power applications on the web. There really isn't a reason for it not to. So I'm really hoping that WordPress does become more of a framework for web apps and even design and CSS and whatnot. Because I think ultimately, there's some great solutions out there. We use Twitter Bootstrap. Foundation's a really good framework. But I easily could see WordPress just going into those markets as well and redefining them. Innovating in that space and finding solutions, because there's some amazing programmers that work for Automatic, and I really respect everything that Matt's doing right now. So I would really love to see them actually maybe take some focus off WordPress.com and put some focus back into the WordPress community, so that we can turn WordPress into the framework for the open internet.
Interesting. All right. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next 12 months. Just finally, what's the couple of questions before we say goodbye? What's the number one piece of advice you would give any entrepreneur trying to build their own business?
Don't be afraid of failure. a lot of people, we go to, especially in the United States, like everyone, well, I have so many friends, so many, colleagues and acquaintances. They all went to school and they all were taught that failure is the worst thing you can do to yourself. And that is the worst possible lesson you could teach somebody.
Yeah.
The coolest thing about our universe and the life that we live right now is that when you push, you get something pushing back. And that is power right there. And sometimes you're going to push, and what pushes back isn't what you expected, and that's okay. And sometimes you're going to push really, really hard in one direction, and then you may realize that you're on the wrong path. And that's okay too. So yeah, you really have to learn to embrace failure and accept it and not take it personal. Because as soon as you learn to separate your ego from failure and kind of like look at the big picture, and the second you can recognize something as failed is actually the moment that you can fix it and see the problem for what it is and then solve it or make it better or decide, hey, that's not a problem I even want to solve. So I would say learn to embrace failure. Learn to screw up, make mistakes, be foolish, take risks. If you're too afraid to do anything, then there's no point in doing it. If something makes you uncomfortable, then I say keep doing it until you get it out.
Great advice. All right, quick details on the competition. Trent has very kindly donated a pro version of the responsive theme from CyberChimps, which you should definitely check out at cyberchimps.com if you haven't already. In order to win the theme, all you need to do is leave a comment underneath this video and tell us the #1 feature or design thing that you would like to see in a future version of a CyberChimps theme. I'll get Trent to swing by in a couple of weeks and look through the comments and award the prize to the winner. How's that sound, Trent?
That sounds great.
Awesome. Hey, Trent, where can people reach out to you and say thanks for this interview?
You can find me on Twitter at Trent Lapinski. It's all one word. You can also hit up at CyberChimps as well, and cyberchimps.com. And worst comes to worst, you could always email me. It's just Trent at cyberchimps.com. I get a lot of emails, so it may take me a while to get back to you, but I try to read them all.
Awesome. Thank you very much for taking some time to speak with us on the WP Elevation podcast. I really appreciate it. Final question is, who would you like me to try and interview and why?
I would love to see some interviews with people who necessarily are a little bit outside the WordPress community, but that have some really good like business advice or marketing advice. Because I really liked at Pressnomics how there were a couple presenters. There was an executive from Salesforce, and there were some other people that aren't really necessarily WordPress ecosystem, but that still have good overall advice and principles and business advice that applies to WordPress. So I would maybe say take a look at some of those presenters and see if maybe you could talk to them in future interviews.
That's great advice. I'm going to have a look through the Pressnomics speaker list from 2013, and I actually had Bill Ballou. I've interviewed Bill Ballou, who was the hit the publish button.
Yeah,
that's him. I've had him on, but I'll look through the speaker schedule and find someone else, and then I'll send you a tweet or an email and let you know when that's ready to go. So awesome. Thanks for that.
I'd really like to see the WordPress ecosystem become more than just about WordPress and being about the greater good of just keeping the internet open. Awesome.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think sometimes we can get a little bit insular in the WordPress community, and it is good to look outside for inspiration.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, thanks again for spending some time with us on the WP Elevation podcast. I really appreciate it, and I wish you all the best for 2014, and it'll be interesting to see how CyberChimps continues to evolve, and I'll be sure to keep an eye on things and keep in touch.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Take care.